How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the show. This is Church and State with Spencer Sanderson. I'm your host, Spencer Sanderson, and at the time of recording this, I have just returned from the holy city of college football, which is Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We just watched Bama beat Vanderbilt. It wasn't as big of a blowout as a lot of us had hoped for, considering the environment of the season we're headed into. But it was fun, nevertheless. So if y'all notice that my voice is a little weak, I was yelling a lot of things in that stadium yesterday. But we pulled through, we won, and I decided to keep repping the polo for today because Mississippi State got shellacked by Texas A&M yesterday. So it was not a good day for Bulldog fans, but it was a great day for the Crimson Tide. But anyways, tangent aside, I am honored to welcome our third guest today. She is a farmhand based in Texas, and she is also an aspiring EMT student. But most importantly, first and foremost, she is a Christian who has grown up in the church and has been teaching Sunday school and children's church from the age of 14 years old since then. So today, I'm very honored to have on the show Miss Tylar Oquin. Tyler, thank you for joining, and I hope I pronounced that name correctly.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So before we get into it, basically just how's everything going? Because from the little conversations we've had, it seems like you probably are my biggest competitor in terms of having a busy schedule. You're juggling farm work, which is probably the most stressful occupation one can think of, and you're also studying for EMT school. So pretty much just how's life?
Well, I mean, it's definitely been busy. Right now, the farm is just starting to pick up. So the last few weeks have kind of been an easy schedule of just like 8 to 5. Hasn't been too bad. But we're moving into planting this week. So it's going to start being more like 15, 16-hour days. So juggling that with school is going to be a challenge. So far, it's been fairly easy because I have the evenings to study. But going into this week, and then as we get closer to harvest, it's going to be a challenge and going to be a lot of late nights trying to cram, I'm sure.
So I guess if y'all are about to plant, are y'all about to start drilling wheat? Probably. Okay. Yeah, we usually start that around November. So have y'all just finished with corn, I'm guessing?
We don't plant any corn, so
Soybeans?
nope, just wheat and Milo.
Just wheat milo. Okay. So y'all got one big harvest in like June or July, and then that'll be it for the year harvest.
So typically we harvest the winter wheat in June, and then around end of October, November is when we start cutting Milo.
Okay. Yeah, we'll drill around November, and then I guess it's the same with y'all. The winter wheat, as soon as it gets cold outside, it basically just goes into hibernation, and as long as you don't step on it, it'll survive. It'll just kind of sit there and sleep for a little while. How big is the operation that you work at? I guess first off, how did you get into it? Because it's not a family operation, I believe. How did you how did you come around to working on a farm?
So I was 16, and I've always had an interest in agriculture, but more the ranching side of things. But when I was 16, a family friend had a haying company, and they were needing some help for the summer. So I went over there. I despised the thought of farming. I thought that looked like the most boring thing on the planet. But I was like, fine, they need help and I need a job for the summer. So I went over there and fell in love with it. And I worked for him for 2 years till I graduated high school. And then the fall of my senior year of high school, I helped with harvest on the farm I work at now. And then that just kind of turned into me getting a job for the summer the next year because I wanted to get into agriculture, but I didn't necessarily want to go get an ag degree, and I didn't know what the options were. So my boss was like, "Well, why don't you come here for the summer?" And then that's just turned into every year since then, and then now I've been full time since December. So that just kind of how I got started in it. I've been here. This would be my fifth summer, I guess. So absolutely love it, and he's taught me a lot. He's very willing to teach, and just very thankful that he gave me the opportunity.
I'm glad to hear you finally drank the Kool-Aid because I kind of I understand where you're coming from. A lot of people when I was in high school, they I used to record a lot of YouTube videos and put them out on my YouTube channel, basically farm vlogs. I'd have a GoPro I'd put up in the tractor cab, and I'd carry my phone around with me, and they'd see some of the stuff that I do, and they'd be like, how in the world do you get excited for going to shoveling corn? I'm like, it's not something that I can really explain until you have also done it. Like farming, you describe it to people, and sometimes it sounds like the worst thing in the world, and then when the people actually do it, they're like, okay, I kind of get it, but it's something you actually have to get your hands in first.
Right.
You have to get your hands dirty and actually do it before you realize, hey, this pretty neat. So is it are you in a pretty rural area where you're at, or are you close to any big cities?
So the closest is about 2 hours away. Closest bigger city, closest
Oh,
Walmart is an hour away. So
oh my
town
gosh.
I'm
Okay,
from
yeah,
is
you're in
about
the sticks.
8,000. Yeah. So small little place, very rural.
Yeah, we farm about 10 minutes away from Huntsville, which is it's becoming to be kind of a challenging place to farm. We've got a lot of land that's disappearing to factories and apartment complexes and subdivisions. And I understand like all those things are necessary, but it really does suck to just, I come back home from college and the place that I learned how to drive a pickup truck is now a shopping center with a Taco Mama and Chick-fil-A and walk-ons, and all those things are wonderful, but it really kind of sets the alarm bells off in your head. Like I really need to get good at cherishing this stuff and enjoying it, because land is disappearing. And now, you know, God bless the farmers in the next few decades that are going to have to deal with, well, we've got like 20% of the land and the population is double. Discuss, let's figure out what we got to do. So I also during high school got interested in the healthcare field. I for a while I wanted to be a surgeon. Then I thought about being a vet. So I can relate to kind of wanting to explore the health field. How did your interest get peaked in EMT school? Like what started you down that path where you were like, hey, I kind of want to lock in and focus on this.
So it's kind of a long story, and I'm not going to go into all the details of that. But
Oh, you can
I
get as
felt like,
detailed as you want. We got I don't I'm in no rush.
well, I felt like the Lord was kind of leading me in a different direction, and that being full time at the farm was not where He wanted me anymore. So, and I kind of wrestled with that for a while because it's like, this is what I want, and the opportunity is here. Why would this not be what you want for me now? But when I finally kind of gave in, it was like, okay, Lord, like, what do you want? And let my boss know. I was like, hey, I'm going to finish out the year, but after that, I'm I'm supposed to do something else. And at that point, I didn't know what. Kind of quit my job, not really knowing what the next thing was going to be. So then, as I started looking into different things, I knew I've never been one that liked working a desk job. It's just never been my thing. I've worked at my dad's store in customer service, did not like that. So I was kind of like, well, what am I going to be able to find? And I have several friends who are EMTs, and they've over the years kind of mentioned you should be an EMT. And I'm like, no, like I had zero interest whatsoever in it. But I kind of started thinking about it and was like, that'd be something where I'm helping people. I'm using my hands. Day to day is different. It's not just, sitting there doing paperwork or something day after
Hmm.
day. And then a friend sent me a link that the community college was going to be offering the class this fall. And I was like, you know what? They're doing it. I have the cash on hand to pay for it. So why not go ahead and do it now and give it a shot? And if I love it, great. And if I don't, then we can figure out something else. But I think really just the thought of being able to do something bigger than just me and just the same thing day in and day out is really what caught my interest.
Yeah, and it's. I bet it was one of those times where I've had times before where I've felt God calling me to something, and then I'll kind of pray like, I think this is you calling me to something, but if you don't mind, I need you to be as blatant as possible. Like I kind of want a Saul on the road to Damascus type of thing.
Yeah.
I need you to come down in a blinding light and say, Spencer, do this, or like Tyler, do this, because it's that's the one of the more interesting. I don't want to say difficult, but like one of the more interesting parts about my faith journey is learning to discern, like, okay, is this God calling me to do something, or is this like my subconscious just trying to cater to my wants? I still don't really have a definite answer to how all that works, but I know that people ask me a lot, like, how can you really believe in God, or why are you so devoted? I'm just like, I there's no good way to explain it except for the fact that I have seen him work in my life and appear in several situations to where the only plausible scenario is that God is trying to speak to me. And back when I explored the help field, I actually got the chance to shadow a few surgeries at the local vet's office in Huntsville. And funny thing was that I got to watch my friend's dog get operated on. He got his patella replaced. I think his mom had said he jumped off the couch and landed funny. I don't remember what his breed is, but he's a little dog, and he was about, I think, 10 years old at the time. So he was getting into his geriatric phase, and he tweaked his knee coming off the couch. And I got to watch him get operated on. It was fun, but after watching four surgeries, I was kind of like, I don't really think this is where I see myself in the long run. So I decided to stay in ag. But in your ideal world, in your ideal scenario, what does the next few years, or I guess more broadly, the road ahead look like for you?
So it's kind of what I'm trying to figure out for myself.
Oh,
Very much up in the air right now. I think get through school. Once I get licensed and hired on somewhere, I think I will probably pursue either going advanced EMT or eventually paramedic. Of course, I gotta kind of see how I actually like the career first, but
mm-hmm.
I would not be surprised if I do go up to paramedic. And so, as far as the next few years, really just looking to see what the Lord leads me to, whether that is eventually moving somewhere bigger, working at a bigger department, or staying here. I'm not really sure. It's very much a transition season in my life and just trying to figure out what it is He wants from me and what He has and where He's leading.
I will say, I think the farm hours have definitely kind of trained you for the work schedule of being an EMT, because I'm not super familiar with it, but I know a lot of it is probably going to be you being on call for stuff. And just
Right.
if something happens, if an irrigation pivot breaks, I got to go run out to the cornfield at 9 o'clock at night to figure out what's going on. An EMT, if somebody gets in a wreck, I mean, you can't tell them, I'm sorry, I'm off the clock. Well, no, this person needs your help. You gotta go. Is there, because I had a friend for a while that worked as a volunteer firefighter because he was interested in going down that route, and he was on call for several stuff. Do you know, are you going to have any opportunities in the near future to kind of, I don't know if you would call it an internship really, but to work as like a EMT in training and be on some of those calls?
Right. So we actually begin clinicals towards the end of this month where we will be on the ambulance or in the ER. So I think we have like 48 hours in the ER that we have to complete. So there'd be like 4 12-hour shifts.
Hmm.
And then we have 24
Wow.
hours on the ambulance. And I can go do more than that if I want. So, and it's nerve wracking because it's, you very much feel like I know nothing yet. You're going to put me on an ambulance and expect me to start implementing what I have learned. And it hasn't clicked yet because I haven't had the hands on portion. So you don't know what you're going to see. I'll have 2 12-hour shifts where I could be called out on the ambulance with, another EMT and paramedic, and I don't know what I'm going to see. And so I'm excited for that, excited for, I'm sure, the adrenaline rush that is going to happen,
Yeah.
but just to kind of see, like, how is this going to be and what can I expect in this?
And sometimes that's the best way to learn, is just to kind of, as as stressful as it might be at the beginning, just throw me to the wolves and see what I can learn from there. Because I'm hands on is my favorite way to learn, but then with that comes like I'm probably going to feel lost for a while at the beginning. But I mean, what better way to do it than just be thrown into the heat of battle and try and look for that. So we've covered a little bit about your interest in EMT school, your plans going forward. But to get to kind of the meat of all this, I want to talk a little bit about your faith life and your life with Christ, because you did mention to me that you grew up you grew up in the church. And what I always tell people is that even if you're raised in the church, you still have to find God at some point. And you being raised in the church your whole life doesn't mean that your testimony has less value, even if you didn't start off as someone who didn't know Jesus and had to kind of find him 100% on your own. But being raised in the church doesn't necessarily mean that your testimony has less value. So I want to ask first about your teaching Sunday school, because I've done that a lot at my home church. I've taught youth group, I've done small group, and then I was on a panel we had a big like senior Sunday where all the high school seniors hosted the big service. So I spoke on a panel in front of about, shoot, Sanctuary was pretty packed out that day. I want to say it was at least 500 people, but probably a little bit more than that. So I've really enjoyed the teaching. But how did you get into that, and how was the first couple times teaching like? Because if it was anything like mine, you were probably extremely nervous and probably looking at your notes about 90% of the time.
Right. So I think I was 13 or 14, I believe, and my parents were teaching children's church at the time, and they decided to start training me to eventually be able to take over their position. I was going to have the little kids class. So I was teaching them, and I probably did that a year or two, maybe. And so that was pretty simple because it was just like, they were 3, 4, 5 year olds. You would do like a short little lesson and then they
Mm-hmm.
just play. So that wasn't too hard. Like I had like a little, Bible storybook that I read them. And then I moved into actually teaching the children's church class for my parents, which was nerve wracking because they were in there for a while. And so I'm like,
You were being shadowed.
right. I'm like, quit listening to me, go away. Like, I don't feel like I know what I'm doing. And then probably when I was 16 or so was when they stepped out of the classroom and it was just me in there. And I've never been nervous with the kids or with trying to teach the lesson unless an adult walks in. Then I start getting nervous of, okay, is what I'm saying making sense? Or, what are they thinking about what I'm saying? Which I guess probably just my pride a little bit, but never been really nervous with that aspect. And then this year I took over the toddler Sunday school class. And so again, that is just a simple, little 10-minute lesson. I have pictures that I go through. I read the story, I apply it, and then they have snacks and playtime. So those haven't.
Snacks was always my favorite part of Sunday
Right.
school.
And I'm
I'm a
eating
big
goldfish
foodie.
with them too. So, But so children's church and Sunday school, I wouldn't say has been that big of a challenge for me because it is more, the Bible stories we all grew up knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it hasn't been that big, as much of a challenge for me. I am also a counselor for church camp. So when we take our kids up there, and I would say that has pushed me more in my spiritual walk just because I'm dealing with young teenagers in their spiritual walk and trying to counsel them, and that can be convicting at times because they're coming to you, you're going to the altar with them, you're talking to them, and they think you got it all figured out because you're the adult and you're like, you have no clue what I'm struggling with. And then just also very convicting of they're watching you and what example are you setting. And so I would say that has pushed me more in my spiritual walk and definitely made me have to be in the word more so I know how to teach and counsel them.
It's real interesting when you realize like, oh, I'm the adult now. Like, oh no, this
Right.
it's happened quickly. And then sometimes when somebody, whether they're 16 or whether they're 18, will like ask me for spiritual advice, I'm thinking like I'm 21. Like relatively, like, to them, I'm a lot older, but I feel like sometimes there's no possible way that I can give a good answer to something because I haven't lived everything yet. But then on the flip side of that, you're also in a really good spot to minister to these people because since you're also still very young, you have a better idea of what the next few years are going to look like as they get into young adulthood or as they start going through high school, getting prepped for college. You're in a lot better spot to you're in a lot better spot to help them with that. And I imagine I imagine there's probably times, or not imagine, I know for a fact there's probably times where teaching a group of teenagers probably goes awry several times.
It can at times, especially, at church camp, it can get, especially with girls. You got girls stuck in a dorm together. There's a lot of life lessons that you end up teaching because they just start, going at each other. And it's like, okay, calm down. Let's sit down and let's all be mature here. Y'all know, you know how to act. But I've been blessed. None of them are terrible or anything. They're all really good kids. And they want to honor God and they want to serve the Lord. They're very tender. And so they're coming asking legitimate questions that sometimes I'm like, I'm still trying to figure that out myself. I don't know how to
Mm-hmm.
help you, but they haven't been, super rebellious or anything. They all genuinely are
Not yet.
trying. Not yet, right? They have time, and I hope they don't, but genuinely want to serve the Lord, and they're asking, "How do I do this?" Or, we had several this year that surrendered their life to the Lord, and they're asking me, "Well, how do I
Awesome.
know what He wants?" And I'm like, sometimes you don't. He's just looking for you to obey each and every day. And he'll open those doors along the way and he'll guide you along the way. Thankfully, have not had very many moments where it's gone awry. There have been, a couple here and there that you deal with, but thankfully they've all been pretty open to any type of guidance or correction that does need to happen.
Yeah, I will say that I would somewhat argue that I still am that way, but especially when I started off in small group, I was probably one of the more disruptive people. I would talk a lot. I would argue a lot. Um, I think it. I don't really know how to say this, but I was a very boisterous individual when I was in small groups, and then once I started teaching small groups, I almost felt like going back to all my teachers in the past and be like, y'all, I'm sorry. Like I get it now, kind of, because now that I've had to deal with like a group of teenagers, which all the small groups I've been a part of, they've all been wonderful. Like I've never had to teach a bad group of people. Like I've never had a bad group at church, but when it does get disruptive or when they kind of start arguing, you get like, wow, I'm the big man now, and I kind of get that. Like I probably put my small group leaders through a little bit of strife
Right.
in my younger days. But y'all's church camp, I assume it's probably like a out of town overnight, right?
Right. So we go to church camp in Colorado every year.
Colorado, okay. But what time of the year do y'all go?
Typically, they take the teenagers in middle of June, so I don't typically get to go because that's when we're usually cutting wheat. But then we take junior campers, which is 8 to 12-year-olds, to camp at the last week of July, I think is when that one is. But we have a lot of teenagers that go to that one because we kind of go as families.
Hmm.
So it's still a wide range of kids that I'll be dealing with or have in the dorm.
Yeah, we have a couple camps at our church. One of them is it's back to school retreat. They abbreviate it as like B2s, but we'll go. I don't remember exactly where, but it's somewhere in South Alabama that's got a big lake. There's a river nearby. You're in the woods. You've got cabins. That was always my favorite part. But the retreat that had the biggest impact on me, they call it Word Retreat, and it's for the same age group, but it's a little, I don't want to say a little less fun, but it's in January, so you're not really going out swimming or having a day on the lake. It's a lot more word focused, and that was the retreat that had the biggest impact on me. And I think maybe some of it was also like the sleep deprivation that made me a little more emotionally vulnerable, because I'm sure on church retreats a lot of times sleep is a luxury that sometimes you don't get to come by. Like you're out till 11 p.m. like going for a hike and reading scripture, and then well you got to be up by 7 a.m. to go get breakfast and head on to chapel. But I've found that I've found retreats to be completely beneficial, because or extremely beneficial, because whenever I'm at church, I bring a lot of I bring a lot of stuff in my personal life with me. I'm not really able to turn my brain off, but then when you actually retreat to somewhere and you get away from the devices and you're in a completely new area and the only familiarity you have is your friends and the word, I found that to be amazing. That kind of segues into something else I wanted to go over, because I was also raised in the church my whole life, but I feel like my big come to Jesus moment didn't really happen until my senior year of high school, which is when I was on Word Retreat. And that was the first time in my life that, like, maybe not the first time, but the most notable time where I was like, okay, I feel the presence of God. He is right next to me. He is in this room right now, and it's really powerful. So you were raised in the church, but how did you come to know God on your own and like fully surrender your life over to him?
So I got saved when I was 6, and that was it was very interesting because I can remember the moment, and I can remember the preacher. He was talking about heaven and hell, and
Mm-hmm.
just I remember sitting in the back of the sanctuary, and I was like, he's talking right at me. And I was a little kid, so scared to go down to the altar, so I didn't. And the entire drive to the house, which we lived a couple miles outside of town, I was like, we're gonna get in a car wreck, and I'm gonna die. And I didn't pray, like that was the thought going inside of my head. And so we
Yeah.
got home and I went in my room. I didn't get my parents or anything. Like I knew what I needed to do. And that's when I prayed and asked the Lord to come into my heart. And then when I was 16 is when I actually surrendered my life. And I had been wrestling with that for a while. Like I knew I was a good kid. I was trying to obey the Lord, but I also knew I wanted what I wanted and was afraid he would take that away.
Mm-hmm.
And if I did say okay, whatever you want for me. So I was kind of wrestling with that, and mine was also it was at church camp, and I was a counselor that year. So here I am counseling others struggling with my own surrender, and I laid in bed on Monday night of camp, I believe it was, and laying there in the bunks, and I was just like crying because I knew I needed to, and I was just like, Lord, I'm not there yet. I can't honestly let go and say whatever you want for me. You're gonna have to help me get there because I can't do it on my own. And the next night is when I went down to the altar and was able to say, okay, God, whatever it is you have for me, I'm willing to do it. And since then, of course, I mean, it's a daily choice. You have
Mm-hmm.
to daily choose to walk in surrender. But I have no doubt at that moment that that was when I was fully able to say, whatever you have for my life, and I'm going to seek that no matter what.
Yeah, it's kind of like I'm ready for it, but I need you to give me that final push. Like I'm on the edge. Push me, and I definitely got that push. It was a very vulnerable time in my life, and it was honestly it wasn't really one of the saddest times, but it was one of the most introspective, where I realized like a lot of the stuff that I was putting my identity in, how actually fleeting that all was, and how much it didn't, not that it didn't matter, but how little it was compared to the gifts that God has to offer. So I asked for that push, and God went, bam, there you go. And I was kind of thrust into that, but I was also saved at a pretty young age. I got baptized at 7, and I've kind of wrestled for the longest time, like, did I really know what I was doing, or was I just, oh, this that hell sounds like a bad place. I don't want to go there. So, Pastor, let's go get dunked under the water. Let's get this taken care of today. And I'm curious, because I've mulled this over in my head a little bit. Have there been times where you've kind of thought, when I got saved at 6, I wasn't fully understanding of what I was actually doing, and I may need to get baptized again to like make the actual conscious decision.
There have definitely been moments, and I think as I grew up and I heard stories about other people that made a profession of faith when they were young, and then as they got into their teenage years or adulthood, realized they hadn't truly had the head and heart knowledge. They just prayed a prayer, and we can pray a prayer, but that's not it. It has to be a heart and a head knowledge. And so I had those moments for sure where I was like, okay, did I actually get it? And a group came back from church camp one year, and I hadn't gone to that camp. And one of the other teen girls stood up there and kind of the same testimony of, oh, I thought I got saved, but I didn't. I realized I didn't, so I got saved this week. And that really pushed me to be like, okay, I've got to figure this out because I've been struggling with this. Went to my dad that night and I was like, Dad, I don't know. And he just went through the verses with me. You know, did you recognize that you're a sinner? Did you profess with your mouth? Did you ask the Lord to come into your heart? And, you know, if you did those things, it says he's faithful and just to forgive you, right? And so I prayed with me that night, and I went in my room and prayed. And I was like, Lord, like, if I'm not settled, like, if I haven't gotten this settled, help me realize that.
Mm-hmm.
And after I got done praying, it was like I just had this peace of like, no, you knew what you were doing. You fully grasped the concept at that age. That is when you accepted Christ. And thankfully, he's helped me not struggle with that doubt since then.
Yeah, because I went through, I guess a proper term would be an agnostic phase. Like I never got to a point where I no longer believed in God, but there was a time towards, I think it was my junior year. It was junior year or sophomore year. I remember it was right around the time the pandemic had started, and I don't know if the pandemic had anything to do with it, but I got into this phase where suddenly I found myself like, I don't know if I can confidently say that like I believe in God, because I know he works in my life. He is always with me, but unfortunately there was a time where I guess I had overthought things so much to where I kind of stopped in my tracks, and I'm like, wait a minute, what if I do have this all wrong? Like if somebody were to ask me today, or in that time, if somebody was to ask me, why do you believe in God? I was kind of horrified that I don't really have a good answer. I don't really have a good answer for it at all. And it was really, I felt really troubled just kind of even entertaining that idea. Since I'd been raised in the church my entire life, I was thinking, how bad is it that I have had the privilege of knowing God and being with his people since the day I was born. And after all that God has done in my life, and after all the many blessings that he's giving me, how dare I sit here and start to question? And then I began praying for that little push. And then came senior year of high school. I was at word retreat. I felt that push, and I was like, Lord, I'm so sorry for ever doubting, because it was like my eyes had been opened fully. And I'm wondering, I'm going to put you on the spot, but if you could speak to this a bit, what would you have to say to somebody who's like, I have professed with my mouth that Jesus is Lord. I have accepted God into my heart, and I have asked for forgiveness of my sins. But I don't know if I had the right intentions with that, or if I'm just saying that just to hedge my bets in case hell is real. I don't want to be on the losing side. So I'm going to go ahead and just accept God. What do you have to say to people who they make that vow, they give their hearts to Jesus, but they're concerned if their intentions are really right in the first place, or if they're just doing it, like I said, well, I don't want to go to hell, so I might as well, you know, on the off chance that all this is true, I might as well just accept God and go ahead and protect myself.
First off, I would think tell God that you're struggling
Hmm.
with that, and then just do some examining of your heart and going back to that moment. And that's what I've counseled other young people that are like, well, did I actually get it? And it's like, go back. Only you know what was going on in your heart at that time. That was
Hmm.
you and the Lord. You know, did you pray just because, did you say a prayer just because everyone else around you raised their hand that they wanted to get saved? Or did you say a prayer because you had conviction of the Holy Spirit and you knew I'm a sinner in need of a savior? And I think young people especially struggle with that because we haven't done anything. When you're a 6-year-old and you come to the knowledge that, oh, I'm a sinner in need of a savior, you don't have a past at that point. Sure, you're born in sin, but you don't have a big testimony. So then as you become an adult, you hear all these amazing testimonies of people's lives getting turned around when they accept Christ as an adult. And so then you start going, well, did I really get it? Because, I mean, I prayed when I was a child and I knew I needed a savior. And so definitely have to go back and just examine your heart at that moment, even if you're struggling now, even if you're not as close to the Lord in your walk now, and maybe you've just kind of been flippant with your relationship with God lately. Going back, examining it, getting in the Word, and what does it say about where your heart has to be in that moment, and praying and asking the Lord to give you clarity on if that's truly where you were.
Yeah, that was a struggle with me early on when I was before I had made that decision at 7 years old to accept Christ. I'm like, so to do this, I've got to acknowledge that without Jesus, there is no salvation. I was born a sinner. I was born a broken person. I was like, well, I mean, last week I called Bobby a mean word on the playground, but does that really mean I'm sinful at heart? It was a huge concept for me to grasp that, like, from the womb I was imperfect. No matter how good of a life I lived, I still needed God. My good deeds alone were not enough. I had to accept God into my heart. So I feel like, even for the most devoted Christians, if you're that young, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to actually accept that into your heart, because there's some smart, very, very smart 7-year-olds. You got a lot of Sheldon Cooper Juniors out there that really have it figured out at a really young age. But I feel like that's such a monumental thing to accept, is no matter what I do, I need God. It's like that For King and Country song, "The Proof of Your Love." It's like, if I speak with human eloquence but don't love, I'm nothing but the creaking of a rusty gate. If I have faith to say to a mountain, jump, and it jumps, but don't love, I'm nothing. If I give all I earn to the poor, but I don't love, I'm going nowhere. And then it's like, so no matter what I say, no matter what I believe, no matter what I do, I'm bankrupt without love. And that was a that was a song that had a huge impact on me when I was younger, because that was kind of the message I needed to hear. Was I needed to straight up be told, it does not matter what you do at all, if you don't have the love of God in your heart, and you have not accepted Jesus as your savior, then you need to get that nailed down now. Like, that should be your first step. Real quick, just a couple things to wrap up on, kind of bookending this and getting back to your farm life a bit. So I've worked on my family farm. I think it's been 11 or 12 summers that I've worked on the family farm. I haven't worked on the farm the past couple summers. I was in the Midwest last summer, and then this most recent summer I worked for the university and worked for Congress for a bit. But I'm just curious, what are some overall life lessons that working in ag has taught you?
Work ethic, that's for sure.
There you go.
um,
Amen.
Time management for sure. I don't, I think for me, it really taught me because I didn't grow up in it
Hmm.
and I'm a girl, so it's not a usual line of work for somebody that's a girl and not born into it to go into. So I wasn't confident at all in it because I was like, I know nothing and I'm a female, so who's going to hire me? And so very much has helped me learn some confidence in that physically, I may not be as strong as the guys and they may, like to mess with me about that, but I have the ability to learn things and just giving me a confidence that I am capable of doing new things and hard things and things that maybe isn't normal for girls my age to do.
Yeah, time management was a huge one for me because I had to quickly learn that you might have an entire schedule planned for the week, and then the weather comes in. It's like, no, sorry, too bad. You've got all this other stuff to deal with now, or you have everything planned to do, and then some random machinery on the farm will pick the most inconvenient time to break or to quit working, and it's, well, we've got a week to finish this up. This is going to take us a few days to fix. So now we've got to get done in 2 days what we originally planned to get done in 7. So I would probably tell anybody, if you can work in agriculture and if you can manage that stress, you're 9 out of 10 other jobs, you're probably pretty well cut out for that. And that's something I think is going to help you a lot in your journey through EMT school, is that you're used to some times where you've got to think on the fly. You've got to deal with a day that has now been completely upended by something that nobody had accounted for. But just a last little point. I'm curious, as a fellow young person, in your opinion, what's kind of the overall attitude that you see towards Christ in our generation? I know ever since the tragic shooting of Charlie Kirk, it seems like a lot of people have kind of awakened to the movement of Christianity, and in his passing, he inspired a lot of people to move towards Christ. So I think we're seeing a real paradigm shift there. But what 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 do you think the overall attitude towards Christ is in respect to this generation, and how you reckon we can get other young people our age to move closer to God in such a divided and ridiculously crazy world?
I think, I mean, there's a lot of young people that they don't care or selfish. That's human nature. And they don't care about Christ. They don't care about anybody telling them how to live their life or following God's word or anything. But I also think there are a lot of kids searching for something. They're searching for purpose. And so they are interested in Christianity and Christ, especially since the Charlie Kirk thing. And I'm sure my algorithm plays part in that. It's going to feed me that type of content. But I think that did wake a lot of people up of, okay, if this person could die for what they believed in, maybe I should look into what that is. And then as far as trying to reach the young people, like I said, they're looking for something with purpose, meaning, and at the end of the day, that's the only place they can find it. And so those of us that are Christians, walking in that and walking in our purpose and showing them that there is something greater than ourselves and living for that is probably the best way to reach them. And then just evangelism in general, getting out and talking about the Lord and Christ and what he's done in your life, and that he has given you a purpose. You do have a purpose, and it's to honor and glorify him, and letting them see that joy in us and that purposeness in us.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not great at that. I'm not good at talking to people about the Lord at all. So definitely something I need to work on. But just being more vocal in general and presenting them with, here is something that gives your life meaning.
Mm-hmm. I like that you brought up kind of the fact that, if Charlie dying for his beliefs, that kind of got people to say, okay, well, if he was so devoted to that he laid down his life for his beliefs, there's got to be something there. And I'll tell that to people just about the disciples. Like, you have these people after Jesus's death, no matter how persecuted they were, no matter how many threats were made on their life, they took their devotion to Jesus to their grave. And you see that, and you've just got to think, okay, there's got to be something there. If they're willing to devote their life to this, to lay down everything and follow God and put up with all the awful things that the world throws at them and still stay devoted, there's got to be something there. But I think that's about it for today. I think your TikTok and your Instagram, are they both Ty the Texan?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, Ty the Texan on Instagram and TikTok is where you can find her. I will also put those links in the description as well. And just Tyler, thank you for carving out a part of your day to join me. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, as usual, everyone, wherever, whenever, and however you're listening, it is an honor to be a part of your day and a part of your life. And until next time, this has been Church and State with Spencer Sanderson.